Thanks, Kathy. Yes, so we're going to jump right into it because there is a lot of stuff to cover. But as Kathy said, please go ahead and put any questions in the chat now, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. We'll also share a link to our Slack community where you can go and ask questions there and get support, get help from other community members and us. But I should introduce myself. Ryan Feigenbaum. I'm a developer advocate here at Growthbook. Kathy's our head of growth. And we're really excited about this webinar today because for me, since I've been at Growthbook, I think this is one of the most exciting features we've released, which is multi-armed bandits. This feature came out as part of our November 3.3 release, and it's available to all pro and enterprise users. I think what's so exciting about it is that it's really a game changer for your experimentation strategy. So today, I'm going to go over a couple of different things. So I think the big question, what is or are multi-armed bandits? I think that's a big question we're going to answer, especially how do they differ from traditional A/B tests? We will talk about best practices and kind of insights. So when do you use multi-armed bandits? When don't you? And then I'm going to give a live demo of how to set up a multi-armed bandit in Growthbook. And hopefully you'll see that it's actually pretty simple. And I know kind of that's like putting me in a bad spot for doing a live demo if something goes wrong, but at least then we'll have a sense of what's going on, how to do it. And then at the very end, we will do some results analysis. So this is pretty exciting. We're going to show you a real life multi-armed bandit experiment we ran ourselves on our marketing site, which we'll also then have a bit of a giveaway. If you can guess which variation actually performed the best, we will put you in a raffle to win a $40 credit to our shop to get some experimentation swag. And then we'll end with some Q&A. So yeah, let's jump right into this. All right, the big question, what are multi-armed bandits? So when I first heard about this is definitely the kind of image I had in my mind. I thought of this, multi-armed bandit, a cowboy with 6 arms, but and AI helped me realize my vision. But of course, that's not what multi-armed bandits is. The multi-armed bandits, that terminology comes from a mathematics problem having to do with slot machines. And we have more about this on our blogs. I won't get into that, but what is a multi-armed bandit? Let's introduce it by contrasting it with a traditional A/B test. So think about if you have your website here and you have this Learn More CTA button, and you want to test the color of the button. So we have 5 different colors that we want to test. In a traditional A/B test, this is how it works. So we statically allocate all of the traffic across each of the variations. So we have our 5 buttons and we have 20% of traffic going to each of these variations, and then we test the performance. So what is the kind of drawbacks here? This is what is important to think about. So take a second, and if you want to put it in the chat, put it in the chat, but think about what are the downsides of a traditional A/B test in this scenario. So the big problem is that, well, yeah, you need a lot of traffic. All testing, you need some traffic, but you need to wait this entire time. So I'm hovering over like this entire 20% to ship the winning variation. So that means that, let's say, our red button is performing just way, way better, and the purple button's performing much worse. You don't get to realize any of that performance differences until the experiment is over, and then you ship the winning variation. So this is what multi-armed bandits aims to fix. So when we look at multi-armed bandits, the pictures are much different. So we start out with the same scenario as a traditional A/B test, where you allocate statically, or not statically, but equally traffic to each variation. So you start out with 20%, 20%, 20%, but then as the experiment progresses and it finds out, well, actually this purple button is performing better, it starts to allocate more traffic to that button during the experiment. And likewise, if this red button is not performing as well, it allocates less traffic. And this keeps happening over and over until you get a maximum number of allocated traffic to the winning variants, and fewer traffic to the less or the worst performing variants. So this means that you get to maintain that statistical rigor while optimizing your business outcomes. So this is what is so cool. And this allocation here, what's happening, this is all being done by us or by the experimentation platform, based on our algorithms. We are dynamically reallocating your traffic to the winning variations during the experiment. Let me show another kind of graph of that helps kind of visualize this main difference. So MAB, of course, that stands for multi-armed bandit, just so you are aware. But again, on the left here, we have our we have the traditional A/B testing, and we have our 3 variants here. And so this is the whole test, right? The amount of traffic going to each of these variations doesn't change over time. Not until the winner is decided when you reach stat sig here, and then you ship your winning variation. With the multi-armed bandit optimization, you have your 3 variations, and you can see here with the stacked bar chart or the stacked chart that the allocation to variation C, which is performing better, increases more and more over time, while the control gets less and less over time. So I hope that makes sense. I think it's a pretty amazing kind of idea. And I know that when I heard about it, this was sort of my reaction. I was like, well, why don't we just then multi-arm bandit test everything? Like, why would you even bother with traditional A/B tests? Because with multi-arm bandits, it kind of seems like you get to get your cake and eat it too. But it turns out there's also some drawbacks. So the next part of what I want to talk about is when to use a multi-arm bandit, and then when not to use one, and when it's better to use a traditional A/B test. All right, so when to use a multi-armed bandit. I have 3 things look like here for a multi-armed bandit. So one, the winning over learning. So with a multi-armed bandit, one of the things that we're going to see is that you need a single decision metric. So that leads into the second point here, but that's basically that when the algorithm is optimizing that traffic, it needs a single decision metric to optimize for. So that might be a conversion metric, a click metric, but it can only be one. And so if you have a very kind of complex setup where you're trying to really learn about your user behavior, your customer behavior, a multi-armed bandit might not be the best choice. It's really good for when it's important to win, to choose that winning variant as soon as possible. So related to this, as I said, that you have a single goal metric that you're trying to optimize for. And this goal metric should really be something that you can track very quickly. There's not a long delay between the exposure event of the experiment and then that metric. So when you have a single goal metric that's very concrete, that's when a multi-armed bandit works really well. And then the last point is that when you have lots of variations that you want to test, and our recommendation generally is 5+, and that's because when you have fewer variations than that, actually a traditional A/B test might be better at finding the variant that performs the best. So let me give you some kind of real life examples here. So when to use multi-armed bandits. So when you have a limited time frame, bandits is really good. So in the US recently, we had our Black Friday sale. I think that this is maybe kind of spreading out more internationally, but basically in a week in November, they have all these sales. And in that period, right, if you had a traditional A/B test and you wanted to test something for that sale, by the time the test was over, that sale would be over. So that's where you find a really good use case for a multi-armed bandit, because what you could do is set up that test during the sale and then not lose out on any potential revenue or be having bad variants. One way that multi-armed bandits, I've heard it talked about, is a regret minimization strategy. So you don't lose out on the better variants when you're doing something like a Black Friday sale. Another example is something like an exploratory type of experiment where you want to just test out a lot of different things, especially when you want to get to those winners more quickly. So you could think about if you had some kind of publication website and you want to test out stories and which ones are performing better, then you could do something with a bandit where then you would be able to, since those headlines have a expiration date on them in a sense, the news, right, is always fresh. You could again be shipping those better headlines to your users based on whatever kind of engagement metric you want. Another one here is when you just have a lot of different options that you want to test. So you could think about a hero image on, a SaaS website or on a e-commerce website. Again, those are really good options. One famous example here that you can look up, which is pretty interesting, is Google's Shade of Blue example where they wanted to test, I think, 41 different shades of blue. And they actually used a traditional A/B test here, but it would have been actually a very good candidate for a multi-armed bandit. And of course, this is one of these examples where, if you believe it, they say that it just netted them millions and millions of dollars in revenue. Graham talks about it. We have a blog post. It's a pretty interesting example. All right, when then to stick with A/B tests. So this is the other side of the coin. When you're more interested in learning over winning, so if the test is more about learning about your customer behavior or than just finding a winner, then traditional A/B test can be better. Likewise, when you have multiple goal metrics that you are optimizing for or that you're tracking, then a traditional A/B test can be better. And likewise, when you have 2 to 4 variations, then that can actually be better with an A/B test. And let me get to some of the examples so we can see how this plays out. So product changes is one where a traditional A/B test may be better, especially for something like a checkout flow redesign, because you want to understand multiple metrics. Most likely you want to understand conversion, cart abandonment, average order value. All of those are perhaps equally important. In that case, then an A/B test might be the better choice. Likewise, with something like a core feature, if you're doing a new user onboarding and you want to really understand kind of user behavior, what they do after that onboarding, the nature of multi-armed bandits means they're very kind of time bound. And so if it's something that's happening maybe a month after, this onboarding, or even, some extended period of time after, then a multi-armed bandit might not be the best. And likewise with pricing strategy, for some of the same reasons, if you're changing your subscription tiers or something, you will want to know conversion rate, retention, lifetime value, all that sort of stuff. That makes an A/B testing probably the better value. I'm sorry, the better option there. So that's kind of an overview of what a multi-armed bandit is, how it differs from a traditional A/B test, and when to use one over the other. So now, though, let's do the exciting part and get into our demo. I'm going to show you a demo just to kind of give you a setup. You'll see this in play, but what I'm going to be using is a Framer as our website that we're going to be testing on, Google Analytics and BigQuery, and of course, Growthbook. So one thing to set this up here is so this is our website. So this is a Framer website. Framer, if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of like Webflow or Squarespace. It's a low code, no code website builder. And we built this kind of fun website. So Bandit is another name for a raccoon. And in Growthbook, you'll see that our icon for bandits is a little raccoon. We affectionately call him Bandit or Bandy around the office. So we made this website of a fictional raccoon rescue, which to test out bandits. So what I'm going to do is take you through here the whole kind of the whole process of setting up the bandit. All right, so I'll first show you just in Framer here how I've added in the connection to Growthbook. So they make it very easy. You can add your Google Analytics. So I just put in my ID key here, and then let's see if I can zoom in. This is the SDK script tag for Growthbook. So I'll show you where we can get this. But one thing I really need to call attention to here is that when using bandits, you need to enable the sticky bucket service. And so with a script tag, an HTML script tag, it's quite easy. You just add this data attribute here, but you need to enable sticky bucketing for bandits because of that dynamic reallocation. We didn't need to ensure that users remain in the same variation over time, and we do that using the sticky bucket service. I'll show that in the app in 1 second, but I wanted to call attention to it. One other thing to keep in mind when using bandits in terms of your app setup is caching. And we have this all in our docs, but because the dynamic reallocation happens by default, it's daily, you need to make sure that that your cache is set up to not conflict with the data that's coming in from Growthbook. We have instructions on that and what to look out for in the docs. Another thing that I've set up here just to be aware of is just a custom Google tag event where I am firing a custom event for called donation. And that just happens if someone clicks this learn more button or the donate button. And that's what's going to be that decision metric when we set up the bandit. All right, come back over here now into Growthbook. I will also actually really quick, this website is live. So if you want to come visit it, you can go to growthbook.framer.website, check it out. All right, Growthbook. All right, so I am in Growthbook here. I am my Raccoon Rescue project. I'll show you this SDK connection really quick. So I set up the SDK connection with the HTML script tag, and then all I did was copy this script tag here that's given into Growthbook, and then added the data attribute for sticky bucketing. And then that was all I needed to do to get set up. Now I also need to set up my metrics. And so see here, I have no metrics set up whatsoever, but we need that decision metric in order to create a bandit. So I'm going to just show you how easy this is to set up. So I'm going to do BigQuery, Google Analytics as my data tracking. I'll keep it there. And so from BigQuery, you can get a connection key here. I'm not sure if you can see that, but I uploaded the file. You can get this right from BigQuery. We have instructions on that. I will test my connection. It's all connected. Now I'll do next. And one of the nice things here, so I don't know if you haven't seen this in a little while, we're trying to make it as easy as possible to get set up with your data sources. So the data source is now set up. And so you saw before there were no metrics, but because we kind of know the shape of your Google Analytics data from BigQuery, we can set up a whole lot of metrics for you. So all of these have been set up for you, which you can now use for experiments and analysis. And we've also set up them via fact tables. And what I want to do here is set up a new that donation event. So I'm going to go into here and add a metric. So we'll call this donation. And so this was the donation event. And click submit. So now this donation event is set up. And you can come and see all this kind of nice different analysis data, all about your different metrics right here in the metrics table. And fact tables just makes it very easy and performant to set all that up. That's a whole nother video on that sort of stuff, but it's gotten a really nice, the experience of setting this all up. So I just wanted to call that out. But we're here to do a little bit of bandits. So I'm going to add this bandit. We'll call it save Bandy. And we can keep all of this the same. We are going to have this all be defaults, except we'll do 5 different variations next. All of this can be the same. And then this is the big thing here that we need to do for a bandit experiment is we need to choose our decision metric. Like I said, it can only be a single metric that you can use because that's what the algorithm is going to optimize for. So I'm going to choose that donation one I just chose. I just created, and then I'm going to use exploratory stage to have 1 day. So this is where those weights will be equal, and the algorithm will begin to decide which variant's performing better, which is performing less. So then it can start to reallocate, and it's going to do that every day. All right, so I've done these two things to connect my app. What I need to now do is actually create the experiment. So I'm going to use our visual editor here. So go to growthbook.framer.website. So I don't know if you've seen this, but this is our visual editor. This allows you to do kind of no code, low code visual experiments. And so this just allows us to change here this text. So instead of having this text, I'm going to just say something like Bandy isn't going to make it. Maybe tug on some heartstrings. Go to variation 2. And do save Bandy. And then go to variation 3. And maybe say, please help. And then go to our last variation here, maybe change something in the big title. So Framer sets this up into 2 different divs, but we can do something here. Help now, please. So not the greatest titles, but you get the idea. So we just set up the experiment. That was it. We now have all of our variations here, the 5 different variations, our control and 4 variations. Click back to Growthbook. So you can see now all these variations are set up. And all I need to do is click start, and that's it. That's the bandit experiment is running. That's all you need to do to have the bandit experiment. We can see here it's in the exploratory stage. As that traffic now comes in and the algorithm figures out which variation is best, it's going to route people to the different better performing variants. Very nice. All right, let's go back here and then look at an experiment. All right, so we ran on our website, had 6 different variations, a control and 5 variants, where we tested out different headlines and different calls to action in the button. And so what I want you to do is put in the chat of these 5 which you thought did better. So we have variation 0 through variation 5. And I took out here the headline plus the CTA text. And I'm going to show you in a second then what the results actually were. But put in which one you thought better. And then if you choose the right one, and there's multiple people that chose the right one, we will put you in a raffle to win some Growthbook swag. So we had our control was experiment fearlessly, deliver confidently with get started. And then you can see some variations after that. I'll do 1 more minute since we're running low on time. Maybe half a couple seconds. I will say that we were surprised by the results. All right. Thanks for everyone who participated. Appreciate that. And let's now open up. So I need to go into our Growthbook. All right, so I'll show you. This is the test in Growthbook, the real life test. And so you can kind of just see what this looks like when it's set up. But we put in all the screenshots here, so we have a sense of what all these were, which is always really helpful, as well as the a sense of what each change was. We did this with our visual editor, and we're using, here's some of the things that we're using in terms of the settings. The big thing is that our decision metric was we wanted to know which of these people were creating an organization. All right, so now kind of drum roll, we'll go into the results. So the kind of key piece of results to look at is this bandit leaderboard. So the bandit leaderboard shows all of your variations here. And to anyone who chose variation 5, that was the best performing one, which we were really shocked about. We were really shocked that Learn More seemed to perform better for especially for the button call to action, and our control performed the worst. Now, there wasn't necessarily a clear winner. There was also we were kind of running this test as we were making changes to how bandits worked and stuff, but get a good sense here of what a results page for a bandits experiment looks like. So the first column here, this users column, this shows you how many users were in each of these variations. And so, usually in a traditional A/B test, you want to see all those numbers be pretty much the same. But with a bandit, and you can really kind of see here, the difference is that because this variation, the 5 variation was performing better, more users saw that. And that's kind of the magic, the whole point behind a bandits experiment. The mean here is this is the mean uplift for the created organization. And you can see then the CI for each of these bars over here, with the mean being the black bar in the middle. That is like the main thing to know about the understanding the results. We have though some other kind of graphs down here to help you visualize the changes over time. So we have three graphs here that to show kind of how things change over time. And the first one is this cumulative variation means. And one of the things to understand here with these charts is that each one of these vertical bars is when a reallocation happens. And so each one of these it kind of shows you the variation weights were recalculated. And so that's when users, the weighting of the variation changes. But this shows you then how the means change over time. This stacked or chart shows you the probability of each of the different variations winning. And then this shows you actually the variation weights. So what you can kind of see here is there's a little tiny up here, the control is very little, right? There's not very much there as compared to the winning variations, which get bigger over time. And so this is a good sense of you can kind of deep dive into the data and figure out what's going on. We also provide the familiar health tab that gives you a sense of making sure that the balance is still working, that you still have statistical rigor, checking for multiple exposures, which can be more of a risk with bandits. As well as we do give you this Explore tab, but there's some biases that can be possible with bandits. We cover this in the doc, so I encourage you to take a look at that. Some of the data that's here can be skewed, so you kind of need to be careful when looking at this, but it does give you some more information to better understand how your experiment's running. So I think we're about out of time. Let me see here. Kathy, were there any kind of questions or anything that we should talk about? Come back over to.
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of really good questions. I think one of them was like how much time will multi-armed bandits save over like a normal A/B test? And
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
uh if you have an answer, please go first. I have some I did reach out to the Lukes and did get an answer, but I'm happy to.
Oh, well, so we have 2 data scientists. They're both named Luke. Those are the Lukes. If they have I mean, their answer is going to be better than mine probably. So,
Okay, we'll start with that. But I think we have a few more. Yeah. So basically, his answer was a 10-armed bandit will save more time over AB versus a 5-armed bandit. So really, the amount of time you save it really depends. If you have one clear winner from the group, bandits will save more time versus the case where there are several arms that are at the top and similar in performance. So it's a way of saying that like if you try with more bandits, you'll get to an answer faster than if you like only have one or two. And
Yeah.
this was asked anonymously, so I'm not sure if that helped answer your question. Um, does anyone want?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a data scientist answer, but it is the case that it depends. There's a lot of factors at play. It depends on the test. It depends on the amount of conversions you have. If you have an A/B test and you don't have enough conversion, that A/B test could take 6 months to reach stat sig. But that's not even really going to help you that much with multi-armed bandits either. I think that generally, though, yeah, if you have five or more variations, you're gonna be able to capitalize on the winning variance more quickly with the multi-armed bandits than you would with an AB attritional AB test.
Great.
Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, no, please. I was gonna see if we wanted to go through some other questions, but we could, yeah, you should.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna do. But you should. I haven't been able to really look at the chat, so you can go.
Yeah, I think Lissy, you mentioned does the winning algorithm can it be set differently for different bandit tests? For example, if one bandit test could be marked a winner based on conversion rate optimization, while another can focus on time and flow. Um, Lissy, I can add you to um, I can unmute you. So if you wanted to clarify, we can we can we can try to answer your question here. Okay, maybe not.
Um,
Um,
let me. So, like I said, we do have good docs. Yeah, I don't know if I know the question exactly, but so under the hood it does give me kind of a chance to talk a little bit about our bandits implementation. So under the hood, we use something called Thompson sampling, which is this Bayesian algorithm, and it's what informs that exploratory stage, which is the stage at the beginning when all the traffic is allocated the same, and then kind of builds up some idea of which variants are performing better, and then what is called in the literature the exploitation stage, which is when the reallocation begins. One of the things that we do here, and I know this isn't really answering the question, but it's maybe just a little bit more sense of what's happening under the hood, is that no matter how bad variation is performing, so let's say somehow you come up with an idea that's just like the worst idea possible, no matter what, still 1% of traffic will continue to go to that variation because behavior of your customers or of your users may change over time. I think someone had said something about like, the behavior during a certain period might be different than another. That's definitely like a something to be aware of and can be a problem for bandits. But so by keeping that 1%, we try to fight against that by always seeing, well, maybe, on weekdays it's one thing, on weekends it's another, so that we can track to see if there's changes happening. So it's never 0%, it's always 1%. And that allows you to kind of always, the algorithm to always be sampling and finding out how every variation is potentially performing.
Great. Matthias also asked if you can do URL redirects versus variations using the HTML tag.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Um, let's see. And Sasha asked two questions. Are we talking about 10 paywall variations, or can it be used for examples like Duolingo push notifications with hundreds of variability?
Um, yes. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't see why not. I think you just basically, the more variations you need to make sure you have enough conversion events to make that feasible. But as long as you have the conversion events, then it should be fine.
Great. Let's
I was
see.
going to show.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, unless you saw another question.
I was just going to show. just here. So I think someone had asked about the cadence. You can change the cadence. So you can go as low as 15 minutes for the cadence. There's things to be aware of there. There's, as always, in terms of how long it, how updated your data warehouse is, and some other things. But you can go down to 15 minutes or longer, depending on what you need. And then the exploratory stage, you can also customize to how long you want that to be. Sometimes a longer exploratory stage can be beneficial. But then down here, you can use URL redirects to do redirects instead of, putting it in code or doing a visual editor, just to answer that previous question.
Great. Let's see. I think we answered that. They asked what Anonymous asked, like, is the reallocation periodic? Is it once per time, or is that a variable as well?
Yes, so that's what I showed when I was setting it up, the cadence, and that is configurable by you. So the default is every day, and that's what we were doing when I showed you the test. I jump back over to Growthbook and the results. So each day, you can see here the variation weights were recalculated. So we have it set up, it goes every day. But you can change that to longer or shorter. And we have some guidelines about how you want to figure that out in the docs. It'll depend a little bit on your traffic and other, factors. But the default is 1 day, but it is configurable, and you can even change that, I believe, the default that you want it to be.
Great. And then I think this last question from Victor seems interesting. Can we run these bandit tests in perpetuity? He said some variations are cyclical. For example, like summer variants may perform during certain times versus other seasons, and having variants adjust on their own seem like a good idea.
It seems really interesting. I don't know actually off the top of my head. I don't know if you can ask if we can get the Lukes to chime in, because there might be some downsides that I'm not thinking about, but it is an interesting idea. I don't know if you can ask them, Kathy, but I can say I can kind of just bring up another point that so multi-armed bandits is, so you might ask, well, why does it have the multi-armed before it? That's because there can actually be other kinds of bandit experiments, which sort of gets into what Victor's asking a little bit, but there's also contextual bandits, which we don't have support for right now, but it is kind of on our roadmap. And if you're interested in contextual bandits, let us know. But that has other issues as well, contextual bandits. But the difference is that contextual bandits figures out maybe more based on like maybe user behavior or other attributes, like to give a more personalized weighting. So let's say that a user, likes the color green or something, and has a preference for whatever kind of maybe books or something, that it'll generate more personalized weightings for the different variations. And so you start getting like not just, pushed to A or B, but, maybe hundreds of different kind of very contextualized variations. It becomes very complex, but it's an interesting idea. That's different than what we're doing, which is just the multi-armed bandits. But I think it touches on a little bit Victor's idea of having these kind of perpetual reallocations.